In 1933, the United States government made something unthinkable a federal crime: owning gold, not selling it, not trading it, simply possessing it. Anyone caught holding gold coins, bars, or even gold certificates could be fined up to $10,000. That's hundreds of thousands today, and face up to 10 years in prison. Overnight, Americans were forced to hand over their oldest symbol of wealth in exchange for paper money, because the government said so. Imagine being told that what you'd spent a lifetime saving your family's inheritance, the treasure passed down for generations, was suddenly illegal to own. And this wasn't the work of con artists or thieves. It came directly from the highest office in the land. This single order would reshape America's financial system forever. To understand why, we have to step back into the darkest years of the Great Depression. By 1933, America was falling apart. Unemployment had reached 1 in 4. Factories sat silent. Banks were closing every day, and families were losing everything. The financial system was imploding because people had lost trust in the banks. They wanted their gold back. You see, at that time, every US dollar was tied to gold under the gold standard. Each paper bill could, in theory, be exchanged for $20.67 worth of gold. When fear spread, citizens rushed to convert paper into real metal, draining gold reserves and threatening to bring the entire system crashing down. Then came Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Sworn in as president in March 1933, he faced an economic disaster and a banking system on life support. He needed a drastic move to stop the collapse. And just weeks later, he made one. On April 5, 1933, Roosevelt signed Executive Order 6102. It declared that private citizens could no longer own most forms of gold. They had until the end of April to turn in their gold to the Federal Reserve or a local bank. In return, they'd get paper dollars still valued at $20.67. Officially, the order was meant to stabilize the economy and prevent hoarding. In reality, it became one of the biggest forced wealth transfers in American history. People lined up to surrender their coins, bars, and heirlooms. Some buried their gold in fields or melted it into jewelry to avoid detection, but most complied. The risk was too high. And then came the twist. In January 1934, less than a year later, Congress passed the Gold Reserve Act, which revalued gold from $20.67 to $35 an ounce. Just like that, the government had increased the value of its gold holdings by nearly 70%. The same gold that Americans had been forced to sell was now worth almost twice as much, but only for the government. Citizens got paper. Washington got profit. This wasn't just an emergency measure, it was a full reset of the monetary system. By removing gold from private hands and devaluing the dollar, the Roosevelt administration gave itself the freedom to print more money, expand credit, and fund massive New Deal programs, all without the constraints of the gold standard. For the government, it was control. For the banks, it was salvation. For ordinary Americans, it was legalized theft. Now, imagine your grandparents saving gold coins their entire lives. Then, one day, they are forced to sell them for a fixed price, only to watch the government raise that price right after. Their lifetime of savings gone in an instant. That's exactly what happened to millions. Not surprisingly, outrage followed. People sued, leading to the Gold Clause cases before the Supreme Court. Many private contracts at the time included gold clauses, meaning debts had to be repaid in gold to protect against inflation. But when the government seized gold and devalued the dollar, those contracts were wiped out. Creditors argued it was unconstitutional, that the government had no right to tear up private agreements. But in 1935, the Supreme Court narrowly sided with Roosevelt by a single vote. The message was clear. In a crisis, the government could change the rules of money itself. And with that, the gold standard was effectively broken. Citizens could no longer demand gold in exchange for dollars. The US currency was now backed not by metal, but by government decree. Trust in gold had been replaced by trust in authority. So who gained from all this? The government, first and foremost. Overnight, its gold reserves surged in value, giving it billions in new financial power to spend, borrow, and rebuild. The banks benefited next. Their gold-backed reserves were strengthened, restoring public confidence after years of panic. And of course, the wealthy and well-connected often found loopholes. Some moved their gold overseas. Others converted it into collectibles or jewelry that were exempt from confiscation. Ordinary Americans had no such luxury. The result was a massive transfer of wealth from households to the state, from the powerless to the powerful. Those who believed they were saving something real and tangible discovered that even gold could be taken from them with the stroke of a pen. Fast forward to today. Why does this matter now? Because the playbook hasn't changed. When financial systems are threatened, governments act to protect themselves first, not you. In 1933, it was gold. In 2008, it was taxpayer-funded bailouts for failing banks. In 2013, Cyprus seized a portion of citizens' bank deposits to stabilize its economy. In 2020, trillions in printed money flooded markets, inflating asset prices while eroding purchasing power for ordinary workers. And that's the modern version of confiscation, not through armed agents, but through inflation, policy, and currency manipulation. Your savings don't vanish overnight. They slowly lose value year after year as the system absorbs it. The lesson of 1933 is simple but brutal. Wealth can be taken in many forms by law, by inflation, or by policy. So ask yourself, if the government once made gold illegal, what's stopping it from freezing digital assets, seizing pensions, or taxing private wealth tomorrow? The precedent already exists. That's why true financial freedom isn't just about money, it's about knowledge. Real wealth lives in assets and skills that can't be seized or devalued with the stroke of a pen. When the US government confiscated gold, it wasn't called theft. It was called recovery. It was sold as patriotism, a sacrifice for the greater good. But make no mistake, the system was saved and the people paid. History doesn't repeat exactly, but it rhymes loudly. If they could take wealth once, they can take it again. So when you hear politicians promise stability or banks assure you your money is safe, remember 1933 and remember who stability is really for. Because the rules of money aren't fixed. They're written by those in power, and those rules can change in an instant. Protect yourself not with blind faith, but with understanding, preparation, and real, lasting value. If this gave you a new perspective, hit subscribe. History holds the blueprint, and I'll show you how to read it.